And we're back with the top Republican on the Foreign Affairs Committee in the House, Congressman Michael McCaul of Texas. Good morning to you.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Lots to decipher with you, but first I want to start on what we just heard from the chairman, because that seemed fairly extraordinary, what he just laid out. He says that there is reason to believe, and the committee has possession of documents about this plot, essentially to seize voting machines, that it involved members of the military, that he's already been in touch with the former attorney general. What is your reaction to this? Well,
my reaction, it was a dark day, January 6th. I want the truth to come out. I think this committee has been somewhat politicized, but the truth should come out. And I think the Department of Justice has been conducting an investigation. I worked at DOJ for almost 15 years, and I trust their I, in fact, called upon them to investigate this. So I'm hopeful that the truth will come out on this. The allegations are very serious.
And I do know that you are endorsed by the former President Trump, so this has to be a little uncomfortable to hear these kind of allegations.
Of course. I mean, when an executive commander-in-chief, and these are allegations. I don't think the executive order was ever followed through with or signed.
It was a draft, but it was discussed in the Oval Office.
Right. I think it should come out, the truth, obviously. I always think the truth should come out.
Well, we will continue to watch the committee on that point. On Russia, you heard the secretary say that if he uses the leverage of sanctions now, he gives up an important bit of deterrence. Do you disagree?
I completely disagree. I think this has been a passive deterrence, right? I mean, I don't see Putin changing his course of action. It's getting very aggressive. The noose is tightening around Ukraine. President Zelensky, as you mentioned, said he wants the sanctions now. We can always remove the sanctions if it deters Putin's bad behavior. But if you reward that and there are no consequences, it's going to continue. And I think all along, there's so many things we can be doing to provide deterrence. If we don't do this, Margaret, the plan of action that I've seen, and in the classified space as well, is very specific, very aggressive in its timetable. If we don't do something strong right now, I'm afraid that he's going to invade Ukraine, which will have, as the secretary talked about, he's right, and I think you and I did, it will have global ramifications here.
When I pressed the secretary on that, he twice said that the U.S. is going after Russian agents in Ukraine. Is the U.S. doing something now that the rest of us just don't know about, or is he just talking about sanctions?
Well, we know that the Brits released this intelligence report that the Russians are trying to depose Zelensky and put their own leader. We know that they're right on the border with Belarus. They're going to do joint exercises with precision weapons and aircraft. We know that Kiev is right there. I think they have three forces: one Kiev, one on the Donbass, and the other one Black Sea, Crimea. This is a buildup we've never seen before, and if with no deterrence, it's going to happen.
Let's take a break and continue to talk about this on the other side of it. So, Congressman, please stay here. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Nation. We continue our conversation now with Congressman Michael McCaul, the lead Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Let's pick back up on the issue of Russia. We're talking about immediate action, potentially. Congress is going away for a week. There are bills before the Senate. I know you're working on one in the House. I mean, do you have that kind of time to play with legislation, or do you need something in terms of a tool set to hand the president more quickly?
Well, time is of the essence. I'm working on a bill I've introduced to get it. We're getting key Democrats on board, and it would be an assistance package of lethal aid to Ukraine. That's important, but what's also important is the message of deterrence. We need joint exercises in Poland, the Baltic states, Romania, Bulgaria, to show Putin that we're serious. Right now, he doesn't see we're serious, and that's why the buildup is taking place. I think this all started, Margaret, with Afghanistan and the unconditional surrender to the Taliban. When he saw weakness, weakness invites aggression. We saw that with Chamberlain and Hitler. Reagan talked about peace through strength. And right now, whether it's, and the thing is, this is not just about Ukraine. It's about China. It's about President Xi and Taiwan. It's about the Ayatollah and the bomb. It's about North Korea that just fired off 2 missiles they said were, these hypersonic weapons. I think this has broader global ramifications. We're seen as weak right now, but because of President Biden, his comments about that a limited invasion was somehow acceptable, and that NATO was divided. I think one thing he said was true is that NATO is divided, and that's Putin's goal is to divide and weaken NATO. He's accomplished some of that.
Well, as you know, I mean, this has been going on since 2014, and during the Trump administration, there was some accommodation, at least in language, from the former president on whether or not there were hard lines. So Vladimir Putin has been getting kind of a mixed message for some time here. How do you change that when President Biden, and you just heard Secretary Blinken send that message that they're willing to have reciprocal restrictions on military exercises or on placement of missiles? Is that kind of accommodation weakness to you?
Well, look, let's talk about Nord Stream 2. Biggest concession ever.
This is a potential gas pipeline from Russia to Germany.
Putin's pipeline into Europe. Congress passed bipartisan mandatory sanctions to stop that from happening. We have a presidential waiver. That's very normal. We never dreamed that a president of the United States would waive that in the national interest of the United States. How is that in the interest of the United States to allow Putin to dominate Europe's energy supply? And then at the same time shutting down Keystone and not allowing the United States to be the leader in energy, LNG, which is cleaner than Putin's dirty energy, from getting into the region. I think this president has made so many concessions with nothing in return. That's why Putin smells weakness. He's wanted this, as you and I talked about, for a long time.
Yeah.
It's his legacy issue.
Right.
And if we don't provide that deterrence, he will go in.
Well, the Germans have sort of been uncomfortable with the idea of moving on Nord Stream, and the administration is saying they're waiting on that. On the other risk here, we have midterm races coming up. In 2018, the United States took offensive action against Russia to stop them from meddling in those races. Do we need to see something like that in 2022?
I don't want to see Russia overturning Ukraine's government. I don't want to see any foreign nation adversary getting involved in our elections. But again, pointing from Afghanistan forward, we have sent a message to our adversaries that we are projecting weakness, not strength. One thing Reagan talked was peace through strength, going back to Chamberlain, Hitler. If we're projecting weakness, it only invites aggression. Historically, you know that. And this is exactly, I've talked to the administration. I want to stop this from happening, but I'm very concerned about the aggression that I'm seeing.
Okay. Congressman, thank you very much for your perspective. We'll be right back with Dr. Scott Gottlieb.